Coverage of the BP spill is focused on beaches and marshland, but are we to some degree missing the point?
Tonight, John Snell continues his series of special reports on Mexico's massive blowout 31 years ago.
Guys, it's been said that if you saw this planet from outer space, you would call it ocean. That's the striking feature. Some scientists are worried that the most severe damage to that beautiful blue planet may be far offshore.
There you go.
Octopus season gets into full swing on the island community of Isla Arena.
They're called the red octopus.
The waters of the Bay of Campeche alive once again.
Quite a bit of amount of oil came to this place.
The Ixtoc spill, a distant memory, except it seems for a few areas where you might find stubborn tar on a rocky beach.
So the tar sample what we recovered from the rocky shores.
But that discovery is black gold for researcher Otto Ortega. He is studying the role microbes play in breaking down oil.
You see still some fragments of tar. Well, it's almost already in liquid form.
A month and a half ago, Ortega put tar samples in 2 flasks, but gave the microbes in one of them a little help, some added nutrients.
It's basically microbial biomass.
In 40 days' time, the microbes devour the oil. These microorganisms, billions of them, are nature's way of dealing with the naturally occurring seepage of oil from the ocean floor. Through a combination of higher temperatures, salinity, and other factors, scientists believe the Gulf of Mexico breaks down oil better than any other body of water on the planet.
It's been really a permanent phenomenon happening.
No one knows how well nature is suited to disposing of a spill as gargantuan as BP's.
These are ranger clams.
At Texas A&M's Corpus Christi campus, Dr. Paul Montagna believes all of the focus on the shoreline misses the point. The gusher was 40 miles offshore, 1 mile down.
And it's almost as if out of sight, out of mind.
Montagna says what's not documented is the effect on creatures in the deep sea, especially those that spawn in the late spring and early summer, when the well was belching in excess of 1,000 backyard swimming pools worth of oil.
The adults can swim through the oil and they're fine, but the babies, the eggs released in the oil will likely die. You know, imagine a year where no human babies were born. The kind of effect that would have, you know, on populations.
The BP spill occurred coincidentally about a mile from a spot where Texas A&M researchers sampled sea life over several years, where bluefin tuna spawn annually, where deep, dark canyons draw red snapper, and where sea banks flower in coral that filter water to feed. Comparatively, a population explosion.
We gave that station the nickname High Pro. That stands for high productivity. It was actually one of the areas of the whole Gulf of Mexico that has the highest productivity.
The Gulf of Mexico was in trouble long before BP, from the loss of Louisiana's coast to the dead zones. A great many environmental insults had already been inflicted.
It's easy for an individual to point at BP and say they're the bad guy because they caused this spill.
Marine biologist Wes Tunnell hopes the spill finally draws interest to the plight of the world's oceans. From man's role in creating low oxygen levels, to overfishing, to condo development on barrier islands.
All of those things are because of our population increases and the desires that we have to either enjoy the environment or eat the environment. In the seafood case, it's hard to point the finger at ourselves if we're one of those that are eating it.
The Ixtoc spill was about 2/3 the size of BP's, but only in 170 feet of water. The Deepwater Horizon had punched into the seafloor at 5,000 feet. Researchers fear their playbook for shallow water may not apply.
We also know that life happens at a slower pace in deep sea. So I would imagine that the recovery rates are going to be a lot lower and a lot slower in the deeper parts of the Gulf of Mexico than we would see up in shallow regions.
After we cap them and we clean them up, basically all the research funds dry up, and that's happened almost everywhere.
2 years after the Valdez spill in Alaska, the herring population fell off a cliff. Nobody ever established why. By then, research money had dried up. BP promises $500 million for academic research open to peer review.
We were just elated, like, finally, we're going to be able to have 10 years of study here.
Dr. Tunnell points out so far only about $40 million has been dedicated.
That other 450 million or so. We're still waiting to have that announced.
You are in a privileged position to perform long-term research. The problem is that sometimes we want to get answers in very short terms, and natural communities do not work that way.
If ICSTOC is the model, the Gulf may already be staging a rally. Some experts who have studied spills the longest worry about how much more the system can take.
Maybe we're reaching some sort of a tipping point with the resiliency of the Gulf of Mexico.
I'll be very surprised, actually, if we don't see at least some parts of that food web altered in some very dramatic ways for decades to come.
Tonight, BP says it's committed to funding that $500 million in research. Experts say the Gulf of Mexico was begging for help long before the Deepwater Horizon blew up.